Rusame reader, Song, and today I will be reading to you from Stars and Moonflowers in Our Garden by Rainbow Star _772. That's me! Now, on to Chapter 18, Worries and Teas. America walked away from Russia's room, finding himself hoping Russia might come to visit his office later. He'd give Russia some tea he'd mentioned in the note, hoping that it'd be a pleasant surprise for the other. He walked up to his office and grabbed a box of mixed tea from the cabinet. America started to boil some water for the tea. While he waited, he started to write his response to Neeks. He, however, didn't finish his response before it was time to pour the boiling water. He took out a couple of tea bags, pouring a cup for himself and one for Russia. He gently tucked the letter he'd started into the folder in his bag. He also put the box of tea in there. It was a chamomile lavender blend. He hoped Russia would like it. He grabbed the cups of tea and snuck back out of his office, making his way to Russia's room. Once he got there, he used his foot to lightly tap on the door as a way of knocking. Russia opened the door and seemed a bit surprised to see America there. "You said you were having trouble falling asleep, so I figured this might help," America said, offering Russia one of the cups. "It's a blend of lavender and chamomile. It's supposed to keep your mind from stressing and help you fall asleep." Russia took the cup from America and smiled at him. "Thank you. That is very thoughtful," Russia said. "I didn't add any sweetener, just because this is supposed to help you relax, not give you more energy," America noted, knowing that may be upsetting to some people. Russia nodded and lightly blew on the tea, getting slightly steamed by the still fairly hot tea. America smiled a little at Russia and used his now free hand to get the box of tea from his bag. "If you like it enough, and in case you ever have trouble falling asleep again, I wanted to give you this," America said, slightly smiling as he offered Russia the box of tea. "Thank you, America," Russia said, taking the box from the other. "No problem. I'll see you later," America said, waving goodbye to Russia before he headed back to his barracks. Once he got back, he put his tea on the desk and put the folder on his desk. He took out his sealed inkwell and put it back on the desk, walking away to get himself into something more comfortable for the next few hours. He came back, finding Bean looking guiltily at a knocked-over inkwell. Thankfully, the inkwell was intact, and no ink had spilled on his desk. "Bean, why?" he asked his cat, knowing that he wouldn't get an answer. The cat meowed, then hopped off the desk, and walked away. America sighed and then looked back to the paper, rereading what he'd written. He read something that he'd written and saw that it was vaguely concerning, so he prepared his quill and struck through it. Once he was done with rereading over what he'd written, he took out Neeks' letter so he could check it back and make sure he'd responded as best he could. Once he was content with his response, he waited for the ink to dry. He wrote, "From Aku to Neeks," on the back of the envelope he was going to put under the chamomile flowers. Once the ink on both the envelope and the letter was dry, he folded the letter and tucked it into the envelope. He smiled a little as he checked the time. He got up and brought the envelope to the chamomile flowers, hiding it beneath them before going back to his barracks. It was far too early to go to work, but far too late to get any sleep. He ended up finishing his tea while he waited for a proper time to start heading to his job. While he waited, he decided to pull out his watercolors and play around with them. He wasn't making a piece to display, just something for fun. He ended up creating a galaxy cat and left it out on his desk, getting up to stretch. He hoped Russia was doing better. He hoped he'd manage to get back to sleep. He checked the time and decided to get something for breakfast, then head to his office. He'd be really early, as per usual. He opted to just make himself a sandwich. It was enough to sustain him until lunch. He started his walk to his office as he ate, humming happily to himself. He had to admit, the night before did have him worried about the prince, but he hoped the tea blend did help and that he liked it, as it was a blend he'd personally been using for a while now. If not, and the prince had another night like that, he had different blends that he may like. He'd ask when he saw the prince next, which would hopefully be soon. As he watched the clock on the wall, he found himself zoning out a bit, wondering what had caused the prince to have a sleepless night. Whatever was the cause, he hoped that the tea helped. After a while of wondering, he decided to make himself some more tea. He put some water on to boil, going to his cabinet to look through it. He pulled out a mug, a tea bag, and a little sugar. Today was a lavender mint day, so that's the blend he went with. It'd throw some energy into his system and calm his nerves a bit. Once the water was at a boil, he pulled it off and poured it into his mug. He then put the tea bag and sugar into the mug, leaving the tea to steep for a bit. Once he'd felt it'd been long enough, he stirred it. He then put his tea on his desk and grabbed some of the stuff he'd had to make into little treatment pills. It was a menial task, but he could do it until he had something to do that was important. He'd finished all the painkillers the day before, so was now making the powder into little pills. That always took the longest. He reached over and took a sip of his tea, hoping it wouldn't burn his tongue, before going back to making the pills. And that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, I'd like to invite you to join the Discord, which is linked down in the description below. That being said, I hope you have a nice rest of your day, night, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy your time, and I will see you tomorrow.